TSPLOST was approved for Fulton County by voters via a referendum back in November of 2016. So the Fulton County cities, they have been, well, Fulton County has been collecting that revenue and distributing it to the cities in Fulton County for the past 5 years. There have been projects in every city. Roswell has several projects on that list, and we have been making good progress on those projects. So, but the topic for today is the renewal for that the T-SPLOST tax. The initial tax was good for 5 years, so it's gonna still get collected till March of 2022, and unless this current referendum passes in November 2021, the collection would just stop. So, what is T-SPLOST? Just to give you some basic information in case some of you don't know. So it stands for the Transportation Special Purpose Local Option Sales Tax. So it's a tax that, gets paid on any taxable goods and services within the Fulton County, and by law they cannot, this collection could only be used for surface transportation projects throughout the Fulton County uh, cities. And if the renewal gets approved by the voters in November 2021, it'll be collected and stay in place for 5 years. So give you some overview. So it's all cities in Fulton County outside of city of Atlanta are involved in this on the tax collection and the referendum. And the county expects to receive to generate about 70 to 80 million dollars just for the city of Roswell. This is based on the population. So the overall number, of course, is a lot higher, but I'm just giving you the collection, the projected collection for the city of Roswell over 5 years, and that number is 70 to 80 million dollars. So this is basically a three quarters of a penny, like the first time around sales tax. Uh, Anybody who buys any taxable products or services in the county outside of city of Atlanta, they'll pay that tax. So it includes any tourists, visitors, businesses, and the residents. So some background here. So for the renewal, Fulton County reached out to the cities earlier this year to initiate the efforts, and with the consent from majority of the cities, Fulton County is now moving forward to put this referendum for the November 21 election. And so when the county decided that it is going to move forward, we started working on developing a project list for the city of Roswell. So we basically to come up with a list that the public and eventually the city council can decide to put on the T+2 project list. Staff in Roswell DOT, we started with looking at all the previously adapted plans like the transportation master plan, the bicycle pedestrian master plan, and North Fulton comprehensive transportation plan. So we pulled projects out of those plans and other planning studies. We also did a public survey back in March of this year, just a couple 3 months ago, asking for public input, and we specifically asked, public's input on some project categories like bike ped projects, intersection improvements, corridor improvements. We also asked the public if they had any specific projects that they would want to see on the list. So we got good input back in March, and the list also included some staff recommendations, and if any of the elected officials in the city of Roswell had any input. So we came up with a big master list. It had about 70 projects in all. So that list was discussed at the transportation committee meetings on March 24th. Those meetings are open to public. So March 24th was the first meeting, April 28th was the second meeting, and then we had a work session with the city council on March 10th, where the list got discussed, and city council tried to reduce the list to basically make it more comparable with projected revenue. So we are in process of seeking more public input on the reduced list of about, I think it has about 18 to 20 projects on the list as reviewed by the city council on May 10th. So we sent this list out for public input starting a couple days ago, and we are going to keep it alive. It's basically it's a website. We are blasting that link on social media, and it's going to stay up till the end of the day, Sunday, late night, Sunday night. And basically we'll be receiving comments from public via that website. There's a form, or you can send an email to tell us what you thought about the projects that are on the list. So, and there is more discussions to come next week on May 26th at the next transportation committee meeting that happens at 8 o'clock in the morning. So we'll present the draft project list again back to the city council, and then any public input we receive on that website till the end of the day, Sunday, we'll provide that public input to the city council so they could make their final decision, uh, considering the public input. So the goal for the city, as required by the Fulton County, is basically to put projects on the list, that are, they basically match the projected revenue. So that's the goal for the city to meet. So after that, the next conversation would be the June 14th city council meeting. That's the 7 p.m. Meeting, a regular city council meeting. So that's where the city council will finally approve this project list and an intergovernmental agreement with the Fulton County and all the other cities, by which time we must have an approved list from all cities, basically. And so after the IGA, the intergovernmental agreement, is executed between the county and all the cities, next step would be the public education on the approved list, and we plan on doing that in September, October of this year, basically up until a month before the actual public referendum, which is going to be on November 2nd, 2021. So here is the list as reviewed by the city council at the May 10th work session. So as I mentioned initially, at the beginning, we had a master list of projects that had about 70 projects. And this is a much reduced version of that. So that reduction of projects happened, well, conducted by the city council based on their scoring, how they ranked these projects in the order of priority. So this is the list that's out for the public input. I'm not necessarily going to go line by line, but like I said, we'll have the Q&A opportunity. And if you have any questions about any specific projects or their scope or the project limit, I'd be happy to answer any questions on that. So this is just a continuation of the same list. And this is a map, and this is all the information that is live on that website that I just mentioned. This is just same projects on the list reflected on this map with the legend. So that's basically all the slides I had, and here's a link to that website that I just mentioned. We request you please review it and provide input to us. Also share it with your friends and family. Encourage them to provide us input, because city council needs that public input to make their final decision on the project list. And we have some the contact information here as well. If you have anything on this presentation or this session, feel free to reach out to Lavanya Jones. Her contact information is here. At the link that you see here, there's different contact information there, but please feel free to reach out to us in any manner. So I'm gonna unshare the screen for now. And we can always share the screen again and go back to a specific slide for me to answer any specific questions. So I have my staff here who can go in a sequence and read the questions, and I can try and answer them.
Good evening, everyone. Mohammed, first question. What is the overall dollar amount we're trying to get under for a project list?
Yeah, so we have those projected revenues from Fulton County. They are the ones who make that projection. So like I mentioned at one of the slides, the number for Roswell is estimated to be 70 to 80 million dollars. And then there's more details to that. So the county requires us to put our projects in 3 tiers. So the tier 1 would be the most expected amount of revenue. So for tier 1, our projected city of Roswell's projected revenue based on its population is $73.3 million. So the list that you just saw should total, well, the final list the city council would approve, that should total about $73.3 million. The list that's on this website is a little bit over, so the city council still needs to review it and maybe scratch off 1 or 2 projects to bring it under the projected revenue number.
Mohammed, can you talk about some benefits that these projects will provide to the community and to the residents?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a good question. So if you look at the project list, it has a very good variety of projects on it. And that was one of the city council's goals and the initial direction. We want to make sure that we have a good mix of projects. So you would see, bicycle and pedestrian improvement projects. You would see corridor improvement projects. And when we say corridor improvement, that means we include the bicycle and pedestrians amenities as well. So all modes of transportation is included in the corridor improvement projects. We also have a couple of bridge replacement projects, which are definitely, this is basically the bridges that are too old. So we want to replace those bridges for safety reasons. And I'll just mention the corridor improvement projects one more time. Several of them include intersection improvements as well. So I'll use Pine Grove Road corridor improvement as an example, which has multiple intersections on it that desperately need some help along with the whole corridor, basically. So that's a good project that is on that list. So overall, we think these projects would significantly help the traffic safety and congestion, and basically that multimodal transportation facilities that the city council wants to provide in our city. And it's definitely a large amount over 5 years, having 70 to 80 million dollars, because as part of the routine annual budget, it's hard to allocate money to some of these high price tag infrastructure projects. So this TSPLOST is an excellent source to build some of these infrastructure projects.
Mohammed, can you talk about what's being proposed on Riverside and along the Chattahoochee River?
Yes, absolutely. So the Riverside Road, of course, that's a very a precious corridor for the city of Roswell. It goes along the river and gets used a lot by the city residents. So the corridor definitely needs some help, for the pedestrians and bicycle amenities. They're not consistent in the public right of way. So that's what that would be the one of the major elements of this corridor improvement project. In addition, there is multiple intersections on this corridor where there is some, operational issues and some safety issues that must get resolved. Those are the major elements of the project would be bike ped amenities and operational and intersection improvements.
What about the Recreation and Parks project?
The recreational and parks project. So we've had, so that's basically an existing trail. I think it just has different, different surfaces starting from, and Rob, please feel free to correct me if I'm wrong. Starting, their project basically starts from Vilio Road and goes all the way along to the 400 Don White Park, Woodstock, not Woodstock, Dogwood Road, and Old Alabama Road. So that's the project to improve some of the surfaces, repair, and if there's any missing gaps. That's the intent of that project. And Rob, if you want to add anything to clarify the scope.
There are also some new sections of boardwalk that are being added close to, I believe it's close to State Route 9 and then close to 400 in some of the areas that frequently flood. Mohammed, next question. Can you clarify that the $73 million for TSPLOST funding includes the roughly $5 million for staffing and program management? So we're looking at $68 million for projects. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct, but I must state that the city council has not made their final decision. That happens at the June 14th city council meetings. So that $5 million number came from, that's a staff recommendation. We need program management and additional staffing to deliver this remaining $68.3 million project, a project list in an efficient, timely manner, within the estimated cost. So that's a staff recommendation to city council. And yes, if city council approved staff's request of 5 million for the program management and additional staffing, the remaining funding left for the actual projects would be $68.3 million.
Next question, how can we see information on the projects that were completed from the initial TSPLOST 1 during the past 5 years?
So we keep that information, well, we try to keep that information up to date on the city's website. I can actually give you a quick update, and I'm sure, Rob, if you want to look for that link and share it here, I think that'd be helpful for the residents. So the projects I can think of, first off, I'll speak of the Rucker Road project. That was a TSPLOST project in partnership with City of Alpharetta. That's completely done, 100% progress on that. We have Big Creek Parkway, which was, actually, thank you, Rob. I'll just follow this list if you want to just zoom in a little bit. So the Big Creek Parkway phase 1 and phase 2. So phase 1 is the intersection of Holcomb Bridge and Warsaw. That actually started construction just the last couple of weeks. There was some clearing work done this week, and that's the beginning of the utility work. The actual construction is still a few months away while all the utilities move their infrastructure out of the way of the project. So that's Big Creek Parkway phase 1. The phase 2 is that bridge over 400 and a roadway that connects Old Alabama Road all the way to Warsaw Road as we speak. And there is some technicality there that I can explain in a minute about the connection to all the way to Warsaw Road. But the status of that Big Creek Parkway Phase 2 is we are using a different method to construct that project. It's called the design build. So we hope to have a design build team on board later this year. So that's when they start they basically move on with the design work and start some construction activities, some utility relocation activities. So we could see some of those activities at the beginning of next year. The Holcomb Bridge interchange. So the city council, signed an agreement, an intergovernmental agreement with the state DOT as part of their express lanes project. They're going to rebuild the interchange at Holcomb Bridge and 400. So that was a huge success and a good partnership with the state DOT that the city council completed several months ago. So we have made good progress on that one as well. The historic gateway project. So the project is mostly funded with other sources. We just had the enhancements. We had about $2.83 million for the historic gateway project enhancements for the funded by TSPLOST. So for that, again, city council created a citizens advisory committee to basically recommend to them what the city council could do with that enhancement money. So that's underway. That effort has been well underway, actually. I'd state we had a meeting on that today. So good progress there as well. The Rucker Road, I already mentioned, 100% complete. Highway 9 and Oxbow Road intersection project. So that's where we are struggling a little for a long list of factors. And we started construction, but that was put on hold. Well, that had to be put on hold several months ago, but we're working with the city council, and we hope to start construction on that one, restart the construction on that one soon. Old Holcomb Bridge road replacement. So that project actually got merged with the Big Creek Parkway Phase 2 project. So that's the same alignment. So that project will get done as part of the Big Creek Parkway Phase 2 project. The the next projects, I believe they are like tier 2 projects. Yeah, it actually says that on the right. So those are tier 2 projects. If there is any money left in the tier 1 projects, we could definitely look into any of these tier 2 projects. And one clarification I was going to make was, so on the current list that I shared, and that's on the website, one of the project listed is the Big Creek Parkway Phase 2, the connection all the way to Warsaw. So that additional piece got added. We had that Big Creek Parkway realignment effort to partner with GDOT Express Lanes project, and during that effort, we mentioned to the city council that the connection to Warsaw is absolutely possible, but we were going to need more money for that. So that's where that additional piece is listed as a project for TSPLOST 2, the renewal that we are talking about as well. So as of today, based on what we know, we need an additional $5 million to basically extend the future Big Creek Parkway Phase 2 all the way to Warsaw. I hope that was clear. If not, please type more questions and I'll be happy to answer.
Mohammed, next question. I know some work has been done on the planning design side for some of these projects, especially Riverside. Do you know if any of this will be presented for public review prior to the vote?
So yeah, that's a good point. For this time around, we don't have many projects that have been like projects that got worked on before. So really, the only project I can think of would be this Riverside Road project that you mentioned. So this has been a priority for the city council. So they gave us some money to do survey concept and public involvement a couple of years ago. If COVID had not happened, we would have had the public involvement done on that project by now and have an approved concept for city council's consideration. But anyways, I think we should be able to share the concept of this Riverside Road project with the public in the next few months. We did not want to do a public meeting for such an important corridor during COVID times because we were up until recently we were still doing all the meetings virtually. But I think now we are in times where we could do actually an in-person meeting, invite the citizens and they can come see what's being suggested. And so that's for just for the Riverside Road project. We should have the public involvement just on that project before the vote. But I would go on to say that for every other project, like a standard practice, absolutely, when we hire a firm to do the design work, the some of the first few things they do is they do a survey, some public involvement, and come up with a concept so the city council can look at it, city council can approve it, and then we move forward with the design. So that's the overall process we would follow for pretty much all projects basically.
Mohammed, I would anticipate that even for some of those projects that aren't under design yet, we would still likely have some renderings and some rough pictures over the next 6 months before the vote on several of those projects as well.
Yeah, absolutely. For the public education piece I mentioned for September, October, we'd definitely invest in preparing some very, very basic, rough concept level drawings. And those could change going forward, but yes, we would have some basic rough graphics to share with the public during the education phase.
Mohammed, next question. Can our TSPLOST list be changed after the vote? How does that work?
Yeah, so after the vote and the approval of the IGA between the county and the cities, the list cannot be changed. This has been a topic of discussion before as well. So I guess that's the answer I would give. Uh, Considering the IGA signed a specific project list being made part of the IGA, but if it's minor changes or like the city of Roswell did some realignment changes, the city of Roswell did it, but still followed the regular city process, the public process, basically, having discussions at committee meetings and then take a vote at a city council meeting. So we fortunately, I think we did better than majority of the cities in delivering the TSPLOST 1 projects. We only had to do one change, which was the realignment of the Big Creek Parkway. And if you were involved in those conversations as a resident at the time, the city council did it for actually a greater good of the city, which is to partner with GDOT and get this interchange of Holcomb Bridge and 400 rebuild, a complete rebuild of the interchange, which is a huge project. The city alone could have never funded such an expensive project. So the opportunity was perfect because GDOT at the time was talking about initiating their express lanes project along 400 corridor. So timing was perfect, and it was a staff recommendation and absolutely the city council's goal to get that interchange rebuilt.
Mohammed, do you have any more specific information about the details of the trail project along the river? Are there existing issues that they're going to be addressing, or is this primarily for maintenance?
Are we talking about? Go ahead.
Go ahead.
I was gonna say, are we talking about the recreational and parks project?
Yes, we are.
So here's what I'm going to request and suggest that we take this question, we email it to, unless Rob, unless you know the answer, but I'd have the answer come from the Recreational and Parks Department, and we can email it out to to all the attendees or the attendee that is asking the question.
I agree. I think we should email out to everyone. That's something that we can get fairly quickly, maybe even tomorrow, if not early next week. And that's something that I would also think that we're going to cover likely in more detail in our future presentations with committee. And definitely, if it ultimately gets on the list, we will have significantly more detailed and more information moving forward towards November. Next question. Can you describe the details of the Hogwallow Creek Trail project, how that was worked out with the private property owners?
So, so that's a very conceptual level project as part of the city's bike ped master plan that got worked on with massive public input in the year 2019, and it got adopted by the city council. I believe it was December 2019. So it identified several creekway trails around the city. So that property would be owned by Fulton County. And Rob, please correct me if I'm saying this differently. So there may not be a lot of private property impacted with the overall Creekway projects, and only really one is listed on the list, the Hog Wallow. So there may not, and the point is, these are just out of the bike ped master plan. They were just line on the paper, very concept level, just connection ideas for bike ped use. So as it gets investigated, we'll definitely know better if there's any private property impact and what are the other impacts. Those are the things that are yet to be known. And I can tell you the city council is aware that, like this, as an example, this Hogwallow Creek trail project, yeah, it may be within the Fulton County property along the creek, but still there's a lot of residential properties along it that back up to it, basically. So it may not directly impact private property, but it may still be an impact to the homeowners as they feel. So that's still a topic of discussion.
Yeah, Mohammed, if I can add, that's not a trail that we have detailed survey on and property information, but the assumption we have used as staff is we would have the ability to take advantage of that existing easement throughout a long portion of that corridor. And I would state that private property impacts for right-of-way acquisition, for example, land that the city would need to purchase from a property owner, or land that the city would need to pay dollars for easements, those types of impacts would be very minimal. Next question. Can you confirm that Jones Bridge replacement is not necessary in the next 5 years versus Oxbow and Norcross, which are in need of replacement?
Yes, actually, that's a good point. Based on the rating rating of these bridges, the first, yeah, I guess I can just explain this a little bit more. So the worst bridge in Roswell is the bridge on Riverside Road, but that's part of the Historic Gateway project to get replaced. So we're good there. The next one down the list is the one on Norcross Street. So that is also on that is on this TSPLOST 2 proposed list. The next worst bridge is, you are right, the Oxbow Bridge, which we would want to get replaced in the next 5 years. The Jones Bridge, but that Oxbow Bridge did not make it on this top list that's being shared with the public. The next worst bridge is the Jones Road Bridge, and it doesn't necessarily have to be replaced in the next 5 years. But so that's a little confusion that we need to clarify to the city council at this next opportunity, because it got a higher scoring, a higher priority scoring from the city council. Jones Bridge, Jones Road Bridge did than the Oxbow Road Bridge. So we'll still need to make that clarification to the city council.
Mohammed, what is a GDOT's role in TSPLOST? Do they get to dictate how this money is spent?
So GDOT is not necessarily directly involved, unless we're doing a project on state road, a project that impacts a state road, then they get involved. But they only have, so they dictate their rules and their regulations on our project. They don't direct the money or whether we do the project or not. They only basically tell us about their certain restrictions and rules for the projects within the state road corridors.
What about MARTA's role in TSPLOST? Is there any transit on this list?
So not on this list, but there were initial conversations about transit, but that did not get high scoring or high ranking. It was basically as it looked like through all the different meetings. Majority of the cities in Fulton County did not think transit as such a high priority. Everybody considered it a big priority, but not big enough to be included on this list.
Mohammed, on projects like the Grimes Bridge, Dogwood, Old Dogwood corridor project, do we know yet whether bike lanes are going to be on these corridors? Are we just looking at sidewalk and trail? How are those decisions are going to be made?
So the answer to that would be we don't know that yet. That is one thing that gets determined when we do the initial public involvement and concept development. So based on the public input, and of course based on site conditions, based on the allocated money to a certain project, we make those decisions. We'd love to put bike lanes and trails on both sides of every street in the city. But we are pretty much a built out city, very restricted right away, and property is not cheap to acquire for these projects. So any additional elements in a project, we're just talking high cost additions. So that's how I would answer the question at this point.
How will the residents be informed about the status of the TSPLOST renewal projects?
I'm sorry, Rob, can you please repeat the question?
How will citizens and residents be updated on project status for TSPLOST?
Yeah, so as we did for the TSPLOST one, we try and keep the city's website updated, and that's the best and easiest resource for the citizens to get to. But at any given time, citizens can reach out to us with any of their questions or any of the project status requests. And Fulton County actually maintains the website as well that has all the projects in all the cities.
When can we expect these projects to be complete?
So again, that's question that's going to be hard to answer. So, depending upon how much resources we get to deliver these projects, and also now I'm talking about that program management and additional staffing that we discussed earlier in this meeting. So, based on how much resources are allocated, if the referendum passes, we'll get to work. We have the regular, the city business to take care of, like the maintenance of all the existing public right of way. We have projects that get funded by the city yearly budget. We also are still working on the TSPLOST 1 projects, and we'll be working on those for years to come because we have a couple of big projects going on. And then on top of that, when you add these TSPLOST 2 projects, if it passes, that's a lot of work to do. So that's why we recommended to the city council to give us these extra resources. So depending on that, how much resources we get, we'll begin delivering the program on day one. So it takes years when we start projects from scratch. Basically, that's what's going to happen to most of these projects on this list. We'd be starting from scratch. So it's going to take time. Smaller projects get built earlier, and the larger and complicated type projects, it takes longer to design. It takes longer to come up with a concept, and of course construction. So we'll do the best we can.
Mohammed, next question is about the Holcomb Bridge median islands project. Do we know whether these are going to be pedestrian refuge islands at intersections, or are they going to be wide medians with trees, or where are they going to be located?
So what we vision that project to look like is basically uh, medians that could be fit within the existing available space. If you look at the cost associated with that project, I believe it's $640,000 or maybe $540,000. So that's basically the cost of adding about 2 to 4 isolated medians, about 50 to 150 feet long. And again, we'll try and fit them in within the existing right away, the roadway width in the center that is available to us. So the vision is again not necessarily at the intersections, but kind of mid-block, and they would not be considered mid-block pedestrian crossings. They would just be, for some aesthetics improvements and some, you could hope to get some speed control with those, since the corridor would not have such a wide open look as it does now, especially in certain areas where it's 2 lanes going in each direction and then a center lane. So hopefully the look would change, and it'd be a little bit more narrower. So I'll just answer the last piece here. So the width of those medians is going to be whatever fits in, because what we don't want to do, or what we don't have the resources to do, is to start widening Holcomb Bridge Road towards the outside to fit in wider median, because that impacts private property. And again, moving the curb and moving the roadway, that just becomes a many fold more expensive project. Uh, and as long as the larger trees go, that's going to be hard with the current, the vision of the project. With the narrower median, or the medians that are just going to fit within the existing asphalt, it's not going to be possible to have large trees. What it will be is what you can see today closer to the interchange. On the eastern side, there are some medians that have some vegetation landscaping in them. That's the kind of scope we envisioned and costed the project based on that.
Mohammed, what happens if the tax collections come in significantly under the 73 million or significantly over the 73 million?
So if it's, I hope it's the latter. I hope it's significantly over. So if it's over, what we could do is we could go further down into the tier two and tier three uh, categories of projects. So I did not share that with you today so far, but what we have shared with the city council at these committee and work session meetings is staff is just recommending some project categories. And again, those categories are more bike ped projects, more intersection improvement projects, and a couple other listed. So if it's the revenue is more, then we just do more similar type of projects. If the revenue is less, and we at the time when we realize that if we haven't started any of the projects, we could, bring those forward to the city council, let them make the call to basically like officially, stop the work on those projects, or for now put them on a different list, on a different list. If we have, say, we have started all the projects and the revenue is just not there, we could always consider, reducing the scope. So what, I guess whatever fits, or the city council could find money from other sources to fill the gap. There is various ways to deal with that. And of course, any of such significant decisions, whenever, if and when they're needed to be made, they'll be made at, the city's regular process, like the committee meetings, work sessions, and the city council meetings.
Mohammed, we have questions about the Cox Road improvements and the Nesbitt Ferry Road project. Will Roswell residents have input in these projects, given that Roswell's not going to be leading them?
Yeah, so absolutely, that's a good clarification, a question. So for the Nesbitt Ferry Road, the right of way is in the city of Roswell. City of Johns Creek has offered, a good partnership to do. They want to do a corridor improvement project, and they are offering to pay majority of the money. I think the initial number we heard was about the $7 million of rough cost estimate for that project, and they are requesting about $1 million from the city of Roswell. So that's a pretty good bargain deal for the city. And absolutely, when these things happen, city of Roswell would sign a memorandum of understanding, and then eventually an intergovernmental agreement dictating how the city of Roswell, city council, staff, and residents will have to be involved in the process. And pretty much same for the Cox Road intersections. Only difference is that there, for those two intersections, the right of way is in the city of Milton, but it impacts the city of Roswell residents as well. We get complaints on that all year round. So for them, again, city of Milton would be the lead. Uh, but again, when we sign the MOU and the IGA with the city of Milton, we'll definitely dictate that the city of Roswell council, staff, and citizens will have to be involved every step of the way.
Mohammed, I think we have time for a couple more questions. Do you have any details yet on the Cox intersection projects? Do you know if they're primarily traffic flow congestion issues, or are there any safety problems, or are there any bicycle and pedestrian benefits that could be addressed?
Yeah, I think for those, there is definitely safety issues. One of them is Cox Road, and King Road is an always stop, and that's definitely, it backs up pretty bad. So there's congestion, and there is definitely a safety problem because a lot of people just run that stop sign. For some reason, we have gotten so many complaints about that one. So those solutions that are gonna eventually, go through the public process would, I feel, mainly would be focused on safety and congestion relief. I don't think City of Milton is thinking a full-fledged corridor improvement with bike ped amenities. I do not think that's the case. The other intersection is Cox and Etris. That is a four-legged intersection with one of the leg being a little offset. So that's also a pretty crazy safety issue there. It's not a four-way stop, so congestion is only on one of the side street, but the two side streets being offset a little, it's very dangerous. And again, we hear complaints about that all the time. And I'll say one more thing. So there is this document. It's called the North Fulton Comprehensive Transmission Plan. The last renewal of that plan was several years ago, 3, 4, 5 years ago. It should be posted on the website. If not, we can provide you a link. It talked about these two projects, and it just at a very rough level, it talked about turn lane improvements with a traffic signal or a roundabout. So that is yet to be determined and finalized when City of Milton actually starts working on those projects. And the City of Milton has requested a 25% cost partnership from the City of Roswell for those two.
Last question, Mohammed. How do we decide which tier one projects get higher priority than other tier one projects?
So that is something that becomes part of the process with the when we do the public education. We hear public comments. We'd hear public comments today, and as part of this public survey that's out. And then, of course, if the referendum passes, depending upon the workload, depending upon priorities dictated by the city council, we could decide how many projects could we start on day one, how many projects could we start to work on after 6 months. So again, we bring that out to for the city council to decide as we move forward.
It's 7 o'clock, so real quick, I'm sure Mohammed wanted to say something. Thank you everyone for attending. Thank you everyone for submitting your questions. I hope you all enjoyed this and hope we can do more of these in the future.
Absolutely. Thanks everyone for joining. And Rob, we want to make sure we send that email out to everybody with the description of the Recs and Parks project. And Rob, add a link to the North Fulton CTP, the Comprehensive Transmission Plan, in that email for everyone.
Absolutely. Everyone who signed in and registered and provided their email address, will be providing that. Today is Thursday afternoon, so either tomorrow or Monday.
So I guess I think we're good then. Well, thank you so much everyone for attending. We'll just close the